the shutters and hold on to your hat. A storm has been brewing all season long, and no one's been left untouched in its wake. The winds of change are blowing, a high-pressure system has built up, and a cold front's moving in on the championship chase. Everyone's caught up in a storm that's racing across America. The action now revolves around the eye of the ASA Hurricane, Brian Refner, who has quietly proven himself to be worthy. And here at the Milwaukee Mile, hopes to keep the wind at his back as he sets sail for a title.
The 1995 AC-Delco Challenge Series continues with the Track Auto Badgerland 150. Hazy, hot, and humid conditions continue to prevail over the American Speed Association racing season. We did get a little bit of rain this morning and thought it would cool it off. Wrong. It's going to be hot again this afternoon. Hello again, everybody. I'm Brian Drever along with Rob Albright, and we're looking forward to this place and this race on the historic, the legendary oval called the Milwaukee Mile. And, well, the most obvious difference about this race and the last one is the track itself.
Absolutely. From the quarter-mile bull ring at Anderson to the biggest oval on the ASA circuit, the wide-open Milwaukee Mile. A carnival-like atmosphere. We're on a carnival ride of sorts, and I've noticed something here today for the first time. A lot of Brian Refner T-shirts, because the young man in his second season is leading the points, and he's going to start near the front again today.
He has certainly done a fabulous job and really confirmed his greatness by winning his very first career race at Anderson a week ago. Now, another thing that we noticed when we first got here, in addition to the carnival atmosphere, it looked like a little bit of a carnival when they unloaded the race cars. A lot of new ones.
I wasn't sure I was at the right racetrack. There were at least 8 or 10 brand new race cars making their 1995 ASA debut here this weekend. Good to see Ron Hornaday. He won a qualifying race yesterday. He'll be in the show this afternoon. You know, his exploits out west. An old friend, Tom Harrington, unfortunately missed the show, but 57 cars, Brian, took qualifying runs yesterday.
And not all of them will make the starting field, but the ones that will are down on the grid right now, and that is also where the other members of our broadcast team are. First, we'll go to Ralph Shaheen.
Brian, you know, they've run 28 races here at the Milwaukee Mile, including this 1995 edition. Only 2 people have made all 28 starts, and they're both sitting here on the front row. The man with the most ASA championships, Mike Edding, his Good Ranch-backed Pontiac, will start on the outside of row number 1. But on the pole, once again here in 1995, is Bob Seneker. Hey, Bluebird, you've got 5 wins here at this racetrack, and for the second year in a row, you start on the pole. Give me one key to winning here at Milwaukee.
Just staying out of trouble, Ralph. That's what we got to do here. I think we're fast enough. We just got to stay out of trouble.
It's a big 1-mile oval, and right behind Bob Seneker sits the man who is leading the point standings. He'll start third. That's Brian Refner in the PMW backed entry. And I find it amazing, Brian, that Brian Refner finally feels legitimate. Even though he's been leading the point standings, that one win really seems to have turned his mental mode around.
And perhaps taking the pressure off him. That first win, they say, is the hardest one to get, Rob Albright, so maybe another one here today. If that would be the case, we'd really have to start paying even more attention than we have to Brian Refner.
And it seems like Refner's exploits this season, the tracks that he had the greatest difficulty with in 1994 have been some of his best venues in 1995, including Anderson a week ago. But here was an incident that created an awful lot of controversy. Veteran driver Mike Miller, a lap down to Brad Loney, who was at the time on the lead lap, being collected by Brad. It looked like Miller had the faster car. Mike obviously knows who he feels was at fault in the altercation.
Well, it seems as though those two are going to be going after it again here again this week. In fact, they're pretty much right next to one another down on the starting grid, and with them both is Sandy Hang.
Well, down here near the start-finish line, Brad Loney is here, and in the very next position, Mike Miller. I've talked to both the drivers. They say they put this behind them, but Mike Miller has done a lot to change the car. You've turned this car upside down to give it the advantage. What have you done overnight?
Well, the Atlantic Communications Funkelland Wagner-powered Pontiac wasn't just what we wanted yesterday. We're probably a 10th place car, and talking it over with the guys, we said, hey, you know, what the objective is here is to win. So we changed everything but the driver. And we were actually looking for somebody to drive it. Nobody had the nerve.
Nobody had the nerve but you. But both these guys, Brad Loney and Mike Miller, tell me they're looking for a good, clean race today here in Milwaukee.
Well, the facts are that Mike Miller changed the engine, the shocks, the springs, the gear ratio, and just about everything else. And the only thing they wouldn't want to change would be Mike Miller behind the wheel. Here's the way the points look. 15 separating. Well, wait a minute. Now, that's after qualifying yesterday, so the difference is a little bit greater. Brian Refner leading Scott Hansen by, you can see, just a handful of points, only 18.
Certainly not out of it by any stretch of the imagination. Any of the remaining drivers in the top 5. Mike Eddy, Glenn Allen Jr., there's the remainder of the top 10. Brad Loney, Bob Seneker, Mike Miller. Dave Sensiba struggled somewhat this year, but has cracked the top 10. And Joe Knott, who many say might be the best, most improved, I should say, driver of this racing campaign.
Well, we've talked about all we need to talk about. What we want to do is get this race underway. That's the order of business here of the very highest magnitude. And to do that, once again, Ralph Shaheen gets the honors.
Well, I wish it was me, Brian. Actually, it's going to be Dale Winkleman, who is the regional sales manager for Wisconsin Auto Parts, who gets to fire him up. How about it, Dale?
Sounds good. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Race cars on the starting grid. Soon they'll be circling the legendary oval they call the Milwaukee Mile. You're liable to see them 3 wide, even 4 before the night's over. Welcome to the AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN. For the Track Auto Badgerland 150, brought to you in part by your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. By Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. By Pontiac and your local Pontiac dealer. We are driving excitement. By Goodyear, #1 in racing, #1 in tires. And by Track Auto, your discount parts store. The famous Milwaukee Mile, one of the oldest continuously operating racetracks in America, built originally for horse racing. They had a race here in 1903 that was won at an average speed of 39 miles an hour. The newspaper accounts the next day said that because of the turns, and they had to slow down in the turns, they would never expect an automobile to set a record here. Here's the starting grid. We've already seen Bob Seneker and Mike Eddy. They're on the front row.
He sets a track for the veterans and for the Fords. Well, Ford's occupying first and third. Brian Refner, a strong run, and the best qualifying effort of the season for Harold Fair and that Build-A-Mold Dana Pontiac.
Tony Raines and Jay Sauter, a couple of young and very talented drivers on row #3 side by side.
A former winner at Milwaukee, Steve Holtzhausen, starts in 7th, and Tim Steele making a rare 1995 ASA appearance in car number 97.
40 cars all together. There's Glenn Allen Jr. and Joe Knott, and 2 more of the young and very talented drivers in the championship chase.
6th row is comprised of Matt Kenseth, who many say will run for Rookie of the Year next season, and Jeff Neal in car number 75.
Row #7, Scott Hansen. His success at Anderson, well, he'd like to be as successful here, alongside rookie contender Pat Bordeaux in the Chevrolet.
Very surprising qualifying effort. Bobby Dotter, a former ASA regular, now running routinely with the Busch Grand National Series, starts on the inside of row #8, and a driver who always goes well here at Milwaukee, Kent Stauffer in his Ford Thunderbird.
Moving back through the field, Ted Smokestad really turned a corner with his 9th place finish. Rookie contender in the Super America entry in the Chevrolet, and another rookie contender, Brett Bell, whose luck has not been so good yet this year.
Row #10, Gary St. Amant. He just can't figure out the Milwaukee Mile. I think his best career finish here is 6th, finished 3rd a week ago. And Kenny Schrader starting on the outside of row 10.
After finishing 14th last night. As we move back through the field, there's Brad Loney and Mike Miller, who will be alongside one, actually just one ahead of the other, one on the outside, one on the inside. A couple of little shuffles from what we're seeing here on our graphics for the starting grid.
Last year's Rookie of the Year, this year's leading rookie contender, Dave Sensiba. And Rick Beebe will go from row 12.
And row 13, there's truck driver Ron Hornaday Jr., also races in the Southwestern Series, and Kevin Sawinski in his Chevrolet.
Row 14 of 20 rows this afternoon. Brandon Sperling, a strong run to 2nd behind Hornaday yesterday in a qualifying race. And Tom Jones missed his first ASA show in 80-plus outings last week at Anderson.
As As we continue to move back through the field, Tim Kesman and J.D. Summers. J.D. Summers, an early rookie contender, is now sitting second and with some ground, is pretty much out of the competition with some ground to make up.
John O'Neill substituting for A.J. Cooper. He'll run for rookie honors in 1996. And another driver who plans to do the same thing, Johnny Spawn, the 00, a team car to Randy Larson.
A new name, Rod Wheeler in the 01 Pontiac, and Bill Baird back there in his number 26. He had some qualifying troubles and had to get in on points.
In the 18th row, Rick Miller, runner-up in the Pat Shower Memorial Rookie Chase this season to Rick Beebe and Eddie Sharp, a fellow rookie who's come from, I think, 8th in the rookie standings early to 3rd. He's doing a heck of a job.
Dr. Yale Conley, the racing surgeon from West Virginia, alongside Tony Roper in the Chevrolet.
And Conley brought 75 Simonton Windows employees. They won a sales contest, so they hope he does well today.
And finally, Randy Larson and then Bobby Gill will start on the final row for the Badgerland 150 here as Track Auto presents this competition. The cars are circling the track and getting ready to get underway here. There is the 2 car.
It's Bobby Gill from Dalton, Georgia. Wasn't here to qualify yesterday. Wisconsin short track veteran Jim Weber was behind the wheel, but with the driver change this morning, it is moved to the tail of the field. So all of the cars on the outside row will shift up 1 position. Drivers who did not qualify, quite a slew of them. Pete Wallers, you can see there. Kenny Irwin Jr., disappointed that he didn't make it. Had a great weekend last weekend in the open wheelers. Larry Conroy, Ed Cooper, David Anspaugh, the school principal, Cindy Peterson, Randy Ruhlman, Leighton Reese, who had an in-car camera. That will be carried by Jay Sauter here this afternoon.
And the list continues. Russ Gamester making an appearance after racing pretty regularly last season, has only been here a couple of times and failed to make the field this week. Taking a look from high above, the legendary oval, they call it. A perfect oval it is, 1 mile in length.
And according to our never-failing fountain of information, Torch, this track has hosted a lot of things, including a Green Bay Packers game at one time. It hasn't been repaved since 1967. It will get brand new asphalt in just about a week from now. 40 cars, 150 laps, 150 miles. The race record was set back in 1992. Johnny Benson Jr., who was in his 3rd season of competition. There you can see the field breakdown in terms of makes.
We're going to have a lot of views from inside the race cars here today. And first of all, Fel Pro Pontiac of Tom Jones, the number 0. And we'll get a look at Tom Jones himself in the cockpit of the race car on occasion here today. And there's a look at one of the veteran drivers. Now, also looking out through Jay Sauter's windshield, this is the camera that would have been carried by Leighton Reese, but Leighton looked around after he didn't make the field for another guy driving a Pontiac that would carry that camera and carry it well. He couldn't have found anybody better than Jay Sauter to look for the colors of the Trop Arctic Phillips 66.
And Scott Hansen, of course, who has won here on the Milwaukee Mile, sits ready to pounce should Brian Riffner make the slightest move. He's got an in-car camera, and this is looking at the view that he has. And now this guy doesn't have a whole lot to look at in front of him except green flag, and we're ready for it.
Getting ready to go. Green flag racing here with pole sitter Bob Seneker behind the wheel, the number 84 Bluebird, the pace car down on pit road. There it is, disappearing out of the left side of the screen as Seneker leads the field around the great big wide turn number 1, turn number 2. We've seen 4 wide racing on this track, and I don't see any reason why we won't see it here today.
Well, they call the Milwaukee Mile a Ford racetrack. Ford used to have a slightly larger carburetor. That's no longer the case, and Mike Eddy parlays his outside front row starting position to the lead coming off turn 4 of the first of 150 laps.
In spite of the shorter distance around that turn, Mike Eddy's Pontiac powers its way to the front there, and Harold Fair locked on the outside with Brian Riffner trying to follow the lead of Bob Seneker through into 2nd position now. So side-by-side racing going on for 3rd place, while the first 2 cars have singled out.
You've got to pull for Harold Fair here this weekend, and that build-em-old Dana Pontiac had his best qualifying run in several seasons and showing that it was no fluke as he's challenging for the 2nd spot. Now we're riding with Jay Sauter carrying that Trop Arctic Phillips 66 camera. Also, he's got the hood from Leighton Reese's car, so really doing a good job in a substitute's role with that in-car camera and qualified very strongly.
Talking again about Harold Fair, I had a chance to chat with him down there, and of course he's going through the tech line, and when you qualify among the top 5, the tech inspectors look you over a little bit harder, and I said, well, see what happens when you go fast. Now these guys are tearing your race car all apart. He says, I love it. I love it. Let them go at it.
Now that's the kind of problem you like to have when they want to find out why you're going fast.
There's the famous Bratmobile, as the guys from Johnsonville Sausage call it. They fed us breakfast out here yesterday morning. It seems to have become a little bit of a tradition. But, you know, as we were sitting there, I had a little bit of a bone to pick with the guys starting off with Mark. They didn't bring any of those hot sausages that I like so much, and I was just mad at them.
Well, we've been blessed by Johnsonville the last couple of weekends. At Anderson, they fed us breakfast with some sausage gravy. Yesterday was actually lunch with all the brats you could eat.
Right you are. Lunch it was. Here we are looking at racing a little bit deeper in the field.
Bobby Daughter and Matt Kenseth. Daughter in the 09 machine or 08 machine, and Matt Kenseth in car number 68.
We saw the 33 of Brad Loney, but not the 18 of Mike Miller after they had started nearly side by side. Miller's crew taking a huge chance and changing just about everything, and with no practice. So they said they're either going to be goats or heroes out there today, and we'll let the racing sort itself out to decide.
After Mike Eddy led the first 3 laps, Bob Seneca asserts himself in the blue car number 84 and very quickly bolts to a 3-car length advantage. And a lot of folks on pit road said if Seneca's running at the finish, he's going to be awfully tough to catch. He was very strong here a year ago in car number 84, a track, as we mentioned a couple of times, that has historically been known as a track that does favor, for some reason, Ford-powered race cars.
He won from the pole. I would say that's a pretty good afternoon. Sits on the pole here again. A battle for 6th place on the inside. The 87 car, Tony Raines, driving his Howie Let-Out prepared machine, and on the outside it is the number 53 of Scott Hansen.
I believe that's Tim Steele's car, the number
right.
97 machine. Tim Steele in the HS Dye Simlink Ford Thunderbird. Simlink, a CAD, a computer-assisted design company, and we understand that they are going to also help Tim with about 15 Winston Cup races in 1996. He won as a rookie in 1990, the last ASA rookie driver to win an event. His car was had a miss during practice yesterday. They felt they had it sorted out, and he expected to be a factor this afternoon.
Forgive my confusion. White car, blue numbers.
Looked like
sure.
It,
and Tim Steele, of course, one of the new cars, the new drivers here this weekend. Tony Raines running in 6th place now, seems to be outdistancing the 97 car of Tim Steele just a little bit here, as these race cars have all pretty much single filed out. We're not seeing a lot of side-by-side racing yet, and not a lot of position changes, but it is early.
And suddenly Mike Eddy is getting some pressure from Brian Refner, who started 3rd. He had his hands full with Harold Fair in the opening stages of this race. Now it's the Ford Thunderbird, sporting some new sponsorship this weekend, the PMW Precision Metalworks folks, and Brian giving him a ride here on TNN this afternoon.
And going to the inside here, trying to get a position away from Mike Eddy. Eddy stays on the outside. Plenty of racing room here at the Milwaukee Mile, and Brian Refner makes the pass going into turn number 1 to take over 2nd place, as he now will set sail after Bob Seneca in the flying 84.
As a rookie driver, Brian Refner struggled at Milwaukee just a season ago, finished 17th, but well off the pace of eventual winner Bob Seneca. He is certainly going to be in the hunt all afternoon today.
Let's go down to Ralph Shaheen with a comment.
Well, the first one is about Brian Refner in the 5 car, who's currently running in 3rd. We'll make that 2nd now as he comes back past us here on the front straightaway. You talked about all the t-shirts that everybody's wearing that say Brian Refner on them, including Dave Sensible, who's running back in car number 4, who finished in front of him in the rookie points chase last year. The other driver we wanted to update you on real quickly is Glenn Allen Jr. Glenn pulled on pit road before the green flag came out. His power steering unit is dropped out, and Glenn has no power steering here today.
Dr. Yale Conley into the wall there in the number 3, the Simonton Windows entry. And as you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of the Simonton Windows employees who are here that won a sales contest, well, this is not the site that they wanted to see.
Certainly
Dr. Yale Conley trying to get that machine restarted.
You can see extensive damage to the bodywork on the left side of car number 3. If he's able to drive it back on pit road, his crew's going to have a long task ahead of them getting ready to go. You can see that the right front tire is down. The whole rear of the car is severely damaged. The fuel cell certainly in place and intact, but I doubt that we'll see Conley again today.
There he goes with a heavily damaged number 3 entry. Yale Conley pretty much single-handedly turning a lot of Simonton employees into stock car racing fans, and I imagine they didn't have any no-shows when they got an offer to come here and watch the American Speed Association. Looked like he got down on the inside first and then went out.
I'm not sure which car it was he was underneath, but you know, you got to run really low in turn number 1 to do well here at Milwaukee, and he was way down at the bottom. In fact, looked like he was very close to the end of the pit wall, limping around the racetrack, trying to make his way back onto pit road, about 3/4 of a mile to get back to his pit stall.
Well, it is a long haul back to the pit area. Of course, the crew for the number 3 car is going to have its work cut out for him right now. The Simonton Windows Valvoline Chevy looking like it's out of commission, but these guys are still running. The AC-Delco Challenge Series, the premier short track racing series, has joined forces with Short Track Racing Magazine, the premier publication geared to short track racing fans. For subscription information, call 1-800-468-7876. We're getting ready to go back green flag racing here this week. And once again, as Bob Seneker, who won from the pole a year ago, sat on the pole here in 1995 and has led all but a lap or 2. Mike Eddy briefly took the lead, but since then it has been all Bob Seneker up front.
And the battle's shaping 2nd and 3rd, 4th and 5th. Look down there at Tony Raines and Jay Sauter going side by side into turn number 3. Great racing for 5th position.
Jay Sauter, of course, having mixed success here this season from West Salem, Wisconsin and Lefebvre Racing Pontiac. He is carrying the Phillips 66 Trop Arctic onboard camera that Leighton Reese was to have carried. And he parked it in there along with the hood off his race car to give it to Jay Sauter, and Sauter's carrying it well, making the pass on the inside there to get ahead of Tony Raines.
Has not been a lot of shuffling in the top 10 thus far in this race. The top 10 had separated themselves for 11th on back. That is now 5th position, 6th, 7th. Glenn Allen has picked up a couple of spots apparently in car number 15. Felt he had a good car. Thought it was more of a car to run consistently for 150 miles than it was in qualifying yesterday.
Jay Sauter continues to lead Tony Raines after he had made the pass there, and now Glenn Allen Jr. applying some pressure to the 87 car as well. These three putting on quite a spirited little battle now as Raines tries to get back through on the inside. Out front, it's still Bob Seneker, but we're looking at the best race on the track right now, and that is for 5th.
Looking out the right side door of Tony Raines' car number 87. Back on Jay Sauter. Sauter gives way. Glenn Allen now moves to the low side of Jay and tries to pick up a position as these 3 Pontiacs run right together, 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Glenn Allen Jr. got up alongside, but it looks like he's going to get pinched off on the outside there, way inside, in fact, goes Glenn Allen Jr., but he makes it stick, hugging the inside there. And here on board Jay Sauter's car once again, we look out the front and we see Glenn Allen Jr.'s number 15 Eaglewood Construction Pontiac. There he is.
Boy, that says a lot about chassis setup. You saw how low Glenn Allen's car was. Those left tires were literally down on the edge of the grass. The right side's riding the yellow line that marks the inside of the racing groove.
Down to Ralph Shaheen in the pit with an observation.
Brian, one thing to keep in mind is that Glenn Allen Jr. has no power steering. So when he's down on the bottom groove like he is right there down in turns 1 and 2, he's really fighting that steering wheel to hold that car down there. It takes all of his muscles to do so. The other thing, you're riding on board with Jay Sauter. Remember, he's got that Teasar motor in there. We've seen what it's done on that long straightaway up at Brainerd. This is a high horsepower racetrack here at Milwaukee. It might be a Ford track, but maybe a Pontiac with a Teasar motor could win it today.
It's kind of funny. Ralph talks about Glenn Allen really having his hands full. The car without power steering. There's an old guy up in front named Mike Eddy. He never runs power steering, even on the road courses and the quarter mile at Anderson. Glenn is a former football player, so I'm sure he can handle it today.
Well, we've called Mike Eddy's power steering by Armstrong. Let's go down with Sandy Hang on the travails for Dr. Yale Conley.
Right now, I'm down here with Dr. Yale Conley. He's out of the car right now. What happened?
Basically, we're going down the front straightaway, and there's a lot of bumps out there, and the cars weave around. And I was going underneath 09, and he kind of just moved over a little bit and touched me and just upset the car down the fastest part of the racetrack. And it was just going for the right down, completely out of control.
And that 09 car, Kesman did duck into the pits after that incident just to get his windshield cleaned. He got a little debris on the windshield. That's what happened.
The best move early in the race has been the Winnebago Flex Steel Chevrolet of Brad Loney, who was one of the fastest half-dozen cars in practice, went out to qualify and had a fuel system failure. Now he's battling Joe Knott for 12th position. Loney started back in 22nd. He's already picked up 10 spots, and coming right behind him is that AC-Delco Chevrolet of Kenny Schrader. Now, Kenny wasn't here yesterday, Brian, to qualify. He had West Coast veteran Toby Butler in the car, and Toby ran it, in fact, in the last chance race. So Kenny is coming right along with Brad Loney.
Schrader unofficially listed last night as 14th at Bristol, of course, in the Cup race, and Brad Loney has made the pass. Schrader has not, and the man in the middle now, Joe Knott, in the number 48 with the Valvoline hood there. We saw the Phillips 66 Trop Arctic hood on the number 1 car of Jay Sauter, and we've joked for weeks about how Mark Martin's hood is on the car of Joe Knott. Let's go down to Ralph once again.
Brian, one of the best and most exciting pieces of news comes out of Kenny Schrader's camp early this morning. Schrader man told me that he is very, very close to signing a full deal for a full-time ASA program. This will not be Kenny Schrader running the car on a full-time basis. He will hire his own driver to run the entire AC-Delco Challenge Series Tour in '96, and Schrader will make his guest appearances as he always has. So 2 cars out of Kenny Schrader Racing, possibly in the entire 1996 AC-Delco program. I think that's great news.
Very exciting news indeed, as the number 52, the Special K of Kenny Schrader, runs in 14th spot now. As we go back up front, it's still Bob Seneker in the number 84. The Bratmobile, the Johnsonville Sausage Lane Automotive Ford Thunderbird, leads it after 22 laps. Welcome back to the Milwaukee Mile. Track Auto presenting the Badgerland 150 here at the historic racetrack on the side of the Wisconsin State Fairgrounds. Bob Seneker won from the pole a year ago, runs from the pole once again here, and is trying to run away. Brian Reffner keeping him close there in the number 5 Precision Metalworks Ford Thunderbird.
And as we've often seen, 2 equally fast cars here at Milwaukee can choose entirely different lines around this racetrack. Seneker, watch him now, about a groove and a half up off the yellow line in turn number 4 as he was in turn 1. Reffner, meanwhile, able to stick that black car number 5 right down on the yellow line like glue. And there's Mike Getty.
A little bit further back, the race for 3rd.
And here, I just started to say car number 2, Bobby Gill, has really made a move, starting 40th. Jim Weber qualified that car, I think about 22nd fastest, and that's exactly where Bobby Gill has moved that machine to at this point. Jim and Deb Daly, who run an irregular ASA schedule, and their Justice Brothers Gillen Enterprises Pontiac, have found a driver that they would like to have in this machine full-time next year. I really haven't heard any further developments on that. But Bobby Gill, who has a great reputation running an all-pro and down south, the Dalton, Georgia driver, is a real racing talent.
Well, he's outdistanced the number 22 car there of J.D. Summers, of course, a former rookie contender, led the Pat Schauer Memorial Rookie of the Year competition early in the season, is now slid to 5th in the rookie points. But Bobby Gill, what a great job he is doing in that car as he approaches the tail end of the number 18 Mike Miller car. Miller starting 22nd and is currently in 21st. So while he has stayed put and Brad Loney has moved forward, we've also had a couple of cars that have done kind of a rearward march in this Milwaukee Mile race.
It's hard to tell at what point these drivers will need to come on pit road. Historically, ASA cars have been able to make about 100 miles on a tank of fuel, so theoretically they could run 2/3 of this race without having to come on pit road. And Milwaukee has never been known as a track particularly hard on tires. Here's a great battle for position. Gary St. Amant dueling with Kevin Sawinski, and right behind them is that car number 18 of Mike Miller.
And lurking, big mess over here on the front. I saw Hornaday's car slip out of the picture, just out of the picture to the right. The ones that are still sitting there now include Brett Bell in the 56. We see the 09 trying to get moving again. And as we push in on this car here, I believe that's the 98. And the 98 car of Kent Stauffer, who had been slipping pretty badly from his 16th starting position, had been running 34th. And the 00 car there of Johnny Spaw out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the same hometown, of course, as Brad Loney. So a lot of damage to several race cars here. And there you're looking at one of them damaged very heavily, one of the 2 Tony's Pizza entries. We'll sort out what happened, come back with a damage report for you in just a moment here at the Milwaukee Mile. There's a look at Tom Jones, the Zero Hero in the Fel-Pro Pace Jack Pontiac there, carrying an onboard camera. Things have been pretty calm for Tom Jones thus far in this race. Not so for a couple of drivers that we saw just before we went to commercial. Here's some folks enjoying a good time there, resting in the covered grandstand here at the Milwaukee Mile and State Fairgrounds. There's work continues there quickly on the Johnny Spaw automobile. And here's a look at what happened. Let's see if we can figure it out.
Yeah, it's a little late. Look at the hood off Johnny Spaw's car number 00. Several cars being collected. Look at Tim Kesman sliding into the melee, into the number 56 machine of Brett Bell. And we also saw Ron Hornaday was involved in car number 55. And Sandy is down there with him right now.
Ron, we're looking at your car right now, a lot of damage. What exactly happened out there on the track?
Well, it's kind of more like my fault there. We had two cars tangled up there, and we had a real tight car all day so far, and I started dialing rear brake, and those two got together, and I stood on the brakes, and the back end come around, and just caused myself to get in a bigger wreck.
I saw you were down under the car taking a look. Is it possible to get this thing back out on the racetrack today?
Well, we're not going for no points and everything, but if we can find something out where we can help us out when we come back in here in this ASA race, we'll do it, but if not, our day's done.
Okay, let's go down pit road to Ralph Shaheen with Brett Bell.
Thanks, Sandy. We're running alongside Brett Bell's car. Brett, can you tell me what happened out there?
Well, we're just trying to buy our time there and start working on the car. And those guys kind of got together there, and we were just trying to stay out of it. And we ended up getting hit from behind and pushed right into it. I'd just like to thank Vesco and Coca-Cola and Redline Oil and Wonder Bar for being involved with us this weekend.
Well, he does a pretty good job of driving backwards and talking to me at the same time, much better than I do running. But they're going to get to work on this car. Woody Wood and the gang taking a look at it. To update you on Ken Stauffer as well, that was all cosmetic. They got him repaired. He's made a couple of trips down pit road. He will continue.
Brett Bell had a very strong appearance last year at Michigan International Speedway, intended to run for Rookie of the Year in 1995. You can run no more than 7 races. Well, he didn't get off to a great start, missed a couple of shows early. He's now just going to run 7 this year and then come back in 1996 for Rookie of the Year. In fact, he moved his entire racing operation this season from California to the former Jeff Gordon shops in Pittsboro, Indiana.
Well, the leaders have stayed pretty much out of trouble so far, and of course they have not run under green long enough to get into any kind of traffic just yet, so all the altercations, if you want to call them that, have been deep in the field. And the pace car still out on the racetrack circling with Bob Seneker still hanging on in the front there, and in second spot the points leader, sophomore sensation Brian Reffner. And there you're seeing a look all the way through the rest of the field.
Well, injured earlier this season at Topeka was Doug Mayer. Doug is on the road to recuperation, and Ralph Shaheen had a chance to talk with him this weekend.
Well, things are actually going pretty good. Steady progress every week. I'd like to be back in action, but they tell me they're going to evaluate me again in about another week here. So this is my hometown track, and I wouldn't have missed it for anything. I wanted to come out and say hi to everybody and see everybody, and actually things are going along pretty well.
Last weekend, Sandy Hang on pit road talked a couple of times about pieces and parts. That's kind of what Doug Mayer was after his crash at Topeka. Lots of broken bones. It's great to see him back well on the road to recovery.
He was enjoying some of the sights and sounds and smells along the midway. We get ready to go back green here at Milwaukee Mile. We are 34 laps into 150. It doesn't take Mr. Math to figure out that the Badgerland 150 is going to be 150 laps on this track.
None of the leaders have yet come on pit road. One pit stop will probably be the order of the day today, unless we see excessive tire wear. We remain under overcast. Periodically, the sun has peeked its head between the clouds. But if it stays overcast, we're going to have a great race, and what a great battle for the lead we've got right now.
Side by side, Brian Reffner trying to take the inside line. Got a good jump on the restart. Seneker trying to hold him off outside, and with a front row seat for all the action, as usual, is Mike Eddy. If he's not leading, he's certainly looking at the lead. Seneker able to hold him off. That looks like horsepower down the home straightaway there. These Fords do tend to run a little bit harder and seem to have more power, but then Seneker, his car very tail happy, or a little bit tail happy there as he came out of the turn. Reffner able to hold the inside line much better.
What some of the Pontiac and Chevrolet drivers have told me is in following these Fords, they seem to get, for some reason, a better run right off the corner. It's the immediate burst of acceleration when they come off turn 2 or turn 4 that the Pontiacs and Chevys do handle as well, and maybe at the end of the straightaway are running as well, but you've got to get that run off the corner here.
Well, one of the reasons, as we talked at the beginning of the race to Mike Miller, and why his crew changed a lot of things, including the engine, they put an engine in with a little bit lighter bottom end that they expected would be a quicker revving engine to be able to get off the turns with the Fords, as you say.
Taking a look at 36 laps into this race, through the top 20 at least. Jay Sauter has dropped a couple of spots back to 7th. Matt Kenseth is making a move toward the front, and there's Brad Loney, started 22nd, now up to 10th. Ken Schrader started back there with him. He's up to 12th position.
Loney making a great run from his 11th row starting position up to the top 10 as we continue to look down through the field. And at the leader, Bob Seneker with Brian Reffner and Mike Eddy running behind. Down on pit road, the number 97 car making another visit.
It's Tim Steele in the HS Dye machine, the HS Dye Simlink Ford Thunderbird, and that car was driven last weekend at Anderson by Jay Sauter's brother, Tim.
Tim Sauter trying to make the field here this week as well and not able to do so. There's a good look at pretty much the whole field as it comes by.
Bobby Dotter looking like he's making a strong run as well in car number 08, working on Steve Holzhausen, and I think that's for around 9th or 10th position. And this is Scott Hansen's view as he's closing up behind Bobby Dotter. Dotter, the former ASA veteran, one career ASA win, came back in 1987 at Sandusky, Ohio, beating Dale Earnhardt to the checkered flag, and that's an event he'll never forget.
Dotter there locked in between the two white cars of Hansen and, of course, the number 78 machine of Steve Holzhausen. Now we look a little bit further up through the field, and we see Ken Schrader once again, Jay Sauter, and
Kenny's picked up a couple of spots, Brian. He's got around both Jay Sauter and Brad Loney. Now Sauter sits right behind. We're riding with him with his Trop Arctic in-car camera right behind the number 52 machine of Kenny Schrader and directly in front of Brad Loney. I thought we might get to see a chance of, or get a shot of Loney coming to the bottom side of the Jay Sauter machine. Now he works to the high side as they exit turn 2.
One of the things from those in-car cameras, you can see that as Yale Conley talked about, it's bumpy here. The new repaving job will certainly be interesting to see just exactly what kind of an effect that has. You can see the cars really working around on the racetrack here. It is quite bumpy. This place, a venerable racetrack, shall we say, and now we're seeing, well, it's not raining out there exactly, so this must be something coming off somebody's car and into the camera of Scott Hansen.
It's 11th, 12th, and 13th positions. Look how low Scott Hansen goes to wrestle a spot away from the 78 machine of Steve Holzhausen, with Joe Knott right behind in car number 48. And closing on this group of cars is Pat Mordeau's car number 44, having a very strong early race run.
Joe Knott trying the high side and then ducking down low and trying to get underneath, but he was not able to do so. Holzhausen maintains his position. Bordeaux again riding a slightly higher line, and this is a terrific race going on out there with Hansen leading a quartet of cars, and we're 43 laps into this 150-mile event on the Milwaukee Mile. As we swing back up towards the front, just to let you know that Bob Seneker still leads, and we'll be right back.
And this is the way it looked back in 1984, back before it was the Track Auto Badgerland 150, but it was still the Badgerland 150. Here's the brown and yellow car number 88. Of course, that's Mike Eddy. The 84 Bob Seneker really hasn't changed a lot. And the yellow car number 79, that was Bobby Dotter.
And a couple of races in 1984 as Bob Seneker continues to lead here in 1995. In July of '84, the race was won by Jim Sauter with Alan Kulwicki, Mike Eddy, Bob Seneker, and Rusty Wallace rounding out the top 5. And then later that same year, Dick Trickle won one of his many victories here with Harold Fair, Bob Seneker, Mark Martin, and Butch Miller rounding out the top 5. So this place has seen a lot of great racing.
Well, that is Harold Fair in car number 81 with the young Matt Kenseth charging up toward the front for position. This is a battle for 6th and 7th on the racetrack. Harold has slipped back just a bit. A moment ago, you saw the car creeping in right behind them. There it was again, the red, white, and blue car number 52 of Kenny Schrader. He's a man on the move. Remember, he finished 2nd here a year ago.
Kenseth makes the move and the pass. Ken Schrader moving up now to the tail of the car of Harold Fair. Harold with a great qualifying run and 4th, but now slipping back just a little bit. It takes patience to do well here, of course. But if anybody's too patient and lets Bob Seneker keep running away like he is right now, he's going to win from the pole again in 1995 like he did a year ago.
It's been a tough last few years for Harold Fair. 5 times he's had career victories in ASA. His last one has been several seasons ago. His first came at Salem Speedway back in 1988 and having the best run of his 1995 season. Harold, of course, his son, Harold Fair Jr. is the crew chief, and Jr. does some short track racing at his home track of Toledo Speedway. And you know, we keep asking Harold Jr., when are you going to take over the driving chores for old Dad? He said, I guess when Dad's ready to quit, and that may not be for a long time.
Harold Fair, a winner here 7 years ago at the Milwaukee Mile in that number 81 machine that we have grown to see, the Build-A-Mold Trim Plus Dana Pontiac. Let's go down to Ralph Shaheen once again with an observation.
One of the most amazing things about Harold Fair, one of the reasons why he's running so well here today, is this is the first brand new race car from the ground up Harold Fair has had in over 3 years. It's only the second race on this car, and he feels it. This brand new car is the key to his success here today.
Well, he did mention that to me, that he was very excited to have a brand new race car with a lot of shiny still on it. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, tech crew's taking a good look as they take him apart. When you qualify in the top 5, they're going to run you through that tech line a whole bunch of times. And Harold says, I'll take it every week if I can.
Tony Raines now moving up behind Mike Eddy. Mike running in 3rd position in the Good Wrench Pontiac. Tony Raines in car number 87. That Citgo Petroleum Cleanburn Pontiac wants the spot. Tony, of course, won earlier this year at Topeka, Kansas. And this has been an improving season for Tony Raines and the Baker Enterprises team.
Well, he makes the move on the inside to get that 3rd place position away. Pair of Pontiacs chasing a pair of Ford Thunderbirds up front. Still have 32 cars on the lead lap. These are the front 4 of them. There's 3rd and 4th place now as Tony Raines has assumed the 3rd place spot. Let's see if he can do anything with the lead 2 cars here that Mike Eddy has not been able to do yet.
One of the cars no longer on the lead lap. Dave Sensiba, last year's Rookie of the Year, has gone a lap down. And look at the gap now between 2nd and 3rd positions. Refner is not losing any ground whatsoever to Bob Seneker. Looks like he's almost driving a Seneker-style race, just sitting back in the, waiting for an opportunity to make the move as they come to put another lap on car number 98, Kent Stauffer. Kent, of course, involved in that altercation on the front stretch a little bit ago.
Ralph Shaheen with another observation. Ralph?
Well, Brian, you were talking about Seneker and Refner running the same kind of race. What's really interesting is they're having exactly the same kind of situation with their cars. Both of those cars, out of all the top cars that we talked with, are the only 2 that are handling neutral right now. Those are the best 2 cars on the racetrack, and those 2 drivers are taking full advantage of it at this point.
I would have to say that Brian Refner's car is just a little more neutral than that of Bob Seneker, because he's able to hold a much tighter line around the inside, but Seneker is still able to hold him off. Refner has not been able to make a pass and lead a lap yet in this race, and of course those points are so very important to both of these drivers as Refner leads the points battle and Seneker one of the contenders.
We talk about a neutral handling race car. That means when the car goes into the corner, it neither has a tendency to push its nose out toward the wall nor to get tail happy. It just goes, it plants, it sets down on the racetrack and goes where you want it to go. It does appear to me, though, Brian, as we've reached just a little more than a third of this race complete, that Refner's car is neutral no matter what line he chooses to run. Seneker's car seems to be a bit more sensitive. He needs a particular place to go on the racetrack, and I think if Refner is able to get by, we could see him drive away from Bob.
Getting by is no small feat. Getting by Bob Seneker, you add that part to the sentence, so it's going to be tough. He may be able to use a little bit of traffic as a pick here. Bob Seneker seems to be doing that, a much better job of that, because it's Refner that wants to run the inside line, and that's where the 09 car of Tim Kesman is parked, so Refner's the one that loses out on the deal of trying to get through traffic.
Of course, Refner's car works well on the bottom, works better in the turns than Seneker's, but Bob able to get the run off the corners, and that's what's kept him out front.
Bob Seneker leading the Track Auto Badgerland 150, 57 laps in. There's a look up in the sky and at the top 10. We'll be right back. Up front, things are as they have been. Bob Seneker holding on by the skin of his teeth. Brian Refner, the points leader, challenging and desperately wanting to pick up 5 points for leading a lap here. Seneker trailing Refner by some 200 points for the season, is piling up points of his own for leading virtually all of the 63 laps that have transpired so far. The only other driver to lead a lap here at the 1995 Badgerland 150, Mike Eddy, who captured the lead very briefly at the very outset of this race. Since then, Bob Seneker has held on.
Things are really tightening up again. As look at Tony Raines creeping into the shot in car number 87. He's up to 3rd in the Citgo Cleanburn Pontiac.
Tony Raines closing the gap up to the 2 leaders. A lot of interesting things going on not far behind, not the least of which is, as we'll see, the 4th place car is no longer the 88 of Mike Eddy, but the 68 of Matt Kenseth.
Matt Kenseth affiliated with Fred Nielsen for the 1995 racing season. An interesting point. Kinza started in 11th today. Not too bad in that Nielsen Racing Chevrolet, but this is the car that carried Joe Shear to victory here in 1993. I say it's the car, it's the team for whom Shear was driving at that point in his career.
Refner looking a little bit better for a lead change right there as he tries to drag Bob Seneker down the straightaway, gets a little bit more position on the inside, but door to door they go at it, and now it looks like Refner may just have nosed out ahead ever so slightly, but it's on the backstretch, so if he's going to get credit for leading a lap, he's going to have to hang on to that position and try. Well, now it looks like Seneker goes back to the front, but with Refner's inside line and the shorter way around that great big turn number 3 and 4, he just might be able to take the lead on this lap.
So reminiscent of a battle here just a few years ago between Mike Eddy and Johnny Benson Jr. as they raced side by side for a number of laps in what turned an otherwise uneventful race, a boring race, into a very exciting one. We've got racing all back through the pack, but right now the best battle is up front, and it looks like Refner may finally, Brian, have that edge.
Well, it looked like he was going to do it last time. He's really clawing and scratching there, trying to hang on, but then Seneker gets a better run down the backstretch and into 3 and 4. It appears as though Seneker's car is able to hold off Refner just a little bit better. With a front row seat to all of that is Tony Raines in the 87. Kenseth giving him a little bit of trouble on the inside in 4th spot.
With the track being so flat, the car that runs the high line, when Refner gets underneath him, he can't let the car roll free off the corner. It wants to drift up toward the wall. That keeps your RPMs up, and that's why he's not able to clear Bob Seneker. He can move alongside, but he just can't get the run off the corners as well. Now he runs into turn number 3 very, very hard. He's got to get completely by him. Now I think he'll make it stick because he can let number 5 drift up in front of Bob Seneker as they close in on Bill Baird's car number 26, and that's exactly what he's done.
Now, I thought that Seneker would be able to use Bill Baird's 26 for a rolling pick, but Refner, seeing traffic ahead, was able to get all the way around, and now we will see if he can set sail there with the faster car coming from behind. Will he have the faster car out in front?
First 4 right together. Now Refner having a lot of difficulty getting past Bill Baird's car number 26, so obviously that Chevy is fast, just not fast enough to stay on pace with the leaders. But once they've caught him, they're having a great deal of difficulty getting around, as Baird has shown in 30th place, the last lead lap automobile.
Bill Baird has done a terrific job of improving his standings throughout this season. And last year, he found himself in this situation more often than not. This year, he has actually been in a position of racing with the leaders. Look at Seneker get stuck on the outside and losing 2 more positions now, as both Raines and maybe Kenseth are going to get by on the inside. And at this point, it's Mike Eddy that's got the front row seat for some terrific racing up front.
Well, I think if Ralph was to check with Bob Seneker's crew again right now, they'd say the car is no longer neutral, it's pushing. But one car that's not pushing, that is glued to the bottom of the racetrack, it's that Nielsen Chevrolet of Matt Kenseth, who now has taken 2nd position away from Tony Raines.
So 2 young drivers up front make that 3 with the addition of Tony Raines, and the veterans Mike Eddy, who has gotten around Seneker, and Seneker himself are now watching 3 young stars up there. Matt Kenseth, for the first time, being very competitive here in this 1995 season. Brian Refner, the points leader, trying to run away.
One driver who is having a frustrating time right now who is making his way to the front. We understand that Kenny Schrader has begun to slow on the racetrack in car number 52.
Start-finish line here at the Milwaukee Mile. Once again, we're just approaching the halfway mark. A lot of good racing yet to come, and these people know it. Quickly, a caution flag came out. Glenn Allen Jr. went around, gathered it back up again, but it appears as though wholesale pit stops may be the order of the day here very, very shortly. Brian Refner, Matt Kenseth, Tony Raines, Mike Eddy, and Bob Seneker are the top 5 cars right now, but as you can see, they're all going very slowly. And there's we got a quick glimpse of the 52 of Kenny Schrader. Now we look back through the field. There's the 32 of Ted Smokestad, who's on a march toward the front. Jay Sauter, who was there earlier and has now slid back through the field a little bit. It's going to be interesting to watch as these guys come in, because some of them obviously missed the setup badly at the beginning of this race and are going to want to change. There's one of those Brian Refner t-shirts you were talking about.
There's some a little more colorful than that one, but that one's pretty easy to tell who their favorite driver is. Brian Refner, the points leader, in car number 5. This is a track that everybody thought Scott Hansen had a shot at retaking the points lead, or should I say taking the points lead from Refner for the first time this season. He was less than 24 points behind coming into this race, but Scott's been quiet on the front this afternoon so far.
The season has had only 2 points leaders. Of course, Mike Eddy, who won the first 3 races in a row of the season, led from the very beginning until the lead was taken from him by Refner. And let's go down to Ralph Shaheen, who's presiding over the madness.
Well, it's gotten real active down here in a hurry. Dan Crawford and the crew going to work on Bob Seneker's car. They're having a real hard time getting the fuel in. Seneker's car was not handling all that bad, gentlemen. Seneker was actually taking his time and being patient as you look at Matt Kenseth and Brian Refner's crew going to work. Les Bach getting the right side tires now on, the left side tires going on. They're all going to work. Mike Eddy's crew is done. Bob Seneker's crew is going to beat out Brian Refner. They're going to leave side by side, and it's 70 miles an hour down pit road. Let's make sure they don't go above that.
70 miles an hour doesn't sound that fast, but yesterday for the last chance qualifying races, I had a chance to ride in the pace car with an ASA official. Let me tell you, I used to do a little bit of racing, and I didn't mind it when I was driving going really fast, but when you come off at turn number 4, it looks like that entrance to the pits is about 6 feet wide, and he was going 80 miles an hour. It was a little scary.
There's Ken Schrader. Sandy's got an update on the 52.
Well, Ken Schrader was slowing down just a little bit. They thought there was a crack in the header. They said it shouldn't affect the car. He's going to get out there. Right next to me, Matt Kenseth came in, took 4 tires. Schrader took 4 tires. Also, Bobby Dotter took 4 tires. 2 people said they developed a little bit of a loose condition. That's Matt Kenseth and Bobby Dotter. They were hoping to correct that loose condition while they were on pit road here for this caution.
Didn't look to me like Matt Kenseth had to correct much of anything in that automobile. He was on the fly.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I guess tires just don't last forever. You got to replace them sooner or later. There's Bill Baird, who's looks to be having some difficulty out on the racetrack, and I would say it would originate from the left rear tire. That is not a normal camber angle for the left rear of a stock car.
And I don't think it's a tire, Brian. It looks like he's broken something in the left rear suspension. The tire looks like it's up, so now the right rear is dragging.
Oh, there we go. That's the reason. There's no right side tire on that number 26 car, which is why the left side has got such a funny angle to it.
One rule that ASA has is the what they call the competition yellow. We didn't see that. It comes after 50 consecutive laps of green.
Well, most of the leaders have come in and made their changes. We'll have a brand new race for the second half here at Milwaukee. Thanks for joining us here in Milwaukee. Another look at Tom Jones inside his number 0 Pontiac. Hey, and here's your opportunity to feel like you're really part of the race team. Racing Electronics, the official communications equipment supplier to the American Speed Association, is giving away a Unit and Bearcat scanner along with a 1-year Racers Frequency membership on each ASA telecast on TNN. To enter the drawing, send your name and address on a postcard to Racing Electronics, Box GFS, 8701 Mallard Creek Road, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28262. Hope I didn't go too fast for you. We've been getting letters from across the country, even as far away as Alaska. And this week's winner is Tina Coppin from Elgin, Illinois. Congratulations, Tina. Enjoy your scanner from Racing Electronics. Problems with the number 4 car of Dave Sensiba. Sounded awful when it went by here. Sandy, what's up?
Well, I'm down here with Dave Sensiba right now. Dave, it sounded like the motor broke. What exactly happened and why?
Yeah, this West Michigan Chevy car, Lane Automotive, we had a good car. I told the guys radioed in and told us a little tight, so just wait for a pit stop and come in and fix it, and broke the motor.
Just flat out broke it?
Just flat out broke it. Started missing, and I think timing change, something like that went out.
Some of the guys have been saying they've been developing a loose condition out there. How was your car handling?
We were actually tight, and we were, set up for that, I think, for the track conditions because of the rain today and the overcast. I think we had a good car, just need a little more stagger, and we'd have been in good shape.
That's Dave Sensiba.
Back to the green flag. Eddie Sharp came in on pit road. That was his car. You just saw it in the corner, perhaps, of the screen. He's going to go another lap down, or perhaps his first. And looking out from Bob Seneker's car up to the leaders when Seneker himself had been the leader for so long.
And among the lead pack as they came on pit road, it was Tony Raines getting the quickest service as he's wrestled the lead away from J.D. Summers, who I believe had been on pit road during a previous caution flag. Bob Seneker comes out right behind Raines. That will now move him into second position as he goes past J.D. Summers. Mike Eddy had a good stop, but he's in 4th behind Brian Refner, who runs in 3rd position.
It'll be interesting to see now if Tony Raines can run off and hide in the Citgo Petroleum Clean Burn Pontiac. Pontiac leading now for the first time since Mike Eddy did so the very first lap of the race. So pit stops have shuffled things around a little bit. One of the guys coming to the top, number 53, Scott Hansen in the Wisconsin Aviation, number 53. He's shuffled himself into about 4th or 5th spot. Glenn Allen Jr., who brought out the caution, got in and out very quickly, and now he's much faster. Here we are on board with Scott Hansen, looking at the number 15 Eaglewood Construction Pontiac of Little Glen.
Glenn Allen has already passed about half a dozen cars since the restart. He brought out the yellow, spinning coming off turn number 4, dropped him all the way back to about 15th in the running order, so that's where he came back on the racetrack. Here's the way the pit stops affected different drivers. Brian Refner, of course, was the leader, came out in 4th position. Matt Kenseth came in right behind him, came out 6th. Tony Raines advanced from 3rd to 2nd, now leading the race. Mike Eddy dropped 1 spot, came in 4th, came out 5th, and Bob Seneker picked up 2 positions. When he came in, he was in 5th position, and now he is up to 3rd spot.
You see the 52 of Kenny Schrader out there. He came in after sliding pretty deliberately backwards through the field. Now he sits just a couple of spots behind Glenn Allen. So whatever it was that was concerning Kenny Schrader in that 52 car, apparently he's just going to put it aside and stick a foot in it out there.
And look at Joe Knott now coming to the bottom, working his way in that red and white Valvoline machine. The underside, I thought, of Harold Fair. Fair gets a good run off the corner and fends off young Joey Knott.
There's Pat Bordeaux in the number 44 car. He appeared not long ago and has maintained a position among the top 10 or so alongside Joe Knott right now in the BASF Finishmaster Chevrolet.
Going to the high side of the racetrack, that is Bordeaux. Behind him is car number 6, that's Rick Beebe, as Joe Knott stays down on the low side. Behind Beebe, I believe, is the number 33 of Brad Loney. Now Knott makes the pass, I think, of Pat Bordeaux.
Talking about Rick Beebe and the number 6 car, he is the leading rookie contender right now and has not really been much of a contender per se for a victory in a race this season. They've complained that they're a little bit underpowered, but right now the crew of the number 6 car, they have one thing and one thing only they are focusing on, and that is winning that $50,000 Pat Shower Memorial Rookie of the Year competition. Dennis Grossnickel, the crew chief Mike Miller a year ago, is now on board with that team and says, hey, if we can win that rookie thing, that's like winning 5 races for us. And he says he is just nervous as a cat about the way things are. They're leading the points chase by 107 over second place rookie Rick Miller.
And after watching Brian Refner and Dave Sensiva go at it all season long last year, and they were never separated by more than about 25 or 30 points, it may not seem like a big lead to Beebe, but it seems, you know, almost insurmountable by comparison.
He says all we'd have to do would be to drop out of one race, and that 107-point lead would go away immediately. Of course, he's very correct about that. There's another look now as we just got a glimpse of Brad Loney and Mike Miller, one right behind the other out there on the racetrack. There's the 2 red cars, 133, number 18. And as we look, things really a lot different after the pit stops. Apparently, some of the teams that needed to change the setups have done so, and so we'll see a lot different racing here in the second half.
One of the reasons that we said we thought it might be a 1 pit stop race, at most ASA venues, a half mile or less in length, the drivers are only permitted to change 2 tires during any caution flag pit stop. Here at Milwaukee, because it is a high-speed racetrack, they can change all 4, which most did.
Ralph Shaheen with another observation.
Regarding the pit stops, gentlemen, anything after lap 60, all the top contenders told me they could go the rest of the distance on fuel and tires. We even checked with Phil Homer from Goodyear. He said these tires are good for a long, long distance. And I checked with all the top teams and had changed tires. The tires they took off looked fine. So from here on, they should be good. We might see a couple dive in at the end, though, just for one set of fresh right sides maybe, if there's a long, lengthy yellow near the end.
We've still got nearly 30 cars on the lead lap, Brian, and that's another reason you can't afford to come in. You lose so much track position. If you come back out in 30th spot, you've got no chance.
They've sorted themselves out in pretty much single file line. Brad Loney seems to have a very fast race car once again. Moving towards the front with Steve Holtzhausen in the white 78 there right behind him. Blue 65 of Kevin Sawinski appears, and well, these guys are trying to chase down the leader. The leader is Tony Raines.
Many folks believe that Joey Knott has marked himself as probably the leading candidate for most improved driver. will celebrate his 23rd birthday, I believe, in October. His best finish, a career best, was 3rd at Toledo. He's had some real strong runs this year, including a 5th last weekend at Anderson. In 11 starts, he has 5 top 5 finishes, and he attributes a lot of that newfound success to the stabling influence that crew chief Chris Bradley has been to him. Bradley departing Glenn Allen Jr. after having led Johnny Benson as crew chief to a title back in 1993 has made a world of difference. Maybe not necessarily so much in terms of preparation as it is the way he has settled down his young driver. It's I think as much a mental thing to have somebody like Chris with you as it is his actual abilities in the shop.
He has tripled the number of top 10 finishes this season, and with over $40,000 in earnings, has already earned more money this year than he did in all of last season. So Joe Knott certainly, it would appear, has a great run going this season, but his standings in the points don't really reflect the kind of success that he seems to have had, at least not compared to last year. Joe Knott currently 10th in the points. Still a lot of racing here at the Milwaukee Mile. We'll keep an eye on it for you while you're gone for just a couple of minutes. Tony Raines, the 3rd leader of this 150-mile race. Hi, everybody. 95 laps gone in Track Auto's Badgerland 150. So Mr. Matt says 55 more laps of racing yet to go. Tony Raines still holding on to the lead and not really being challenged yet. Bob Seneker and Brian Refner going side by side. Refner had gotten the best of it a while ago, but the sneaker has snuck back into 2nd place.
In fact, I think Refner has now dropped back to 4th position as he might have maybe overtaxed the right sides on car number 5 in that war for 2nd with Seneker, and now Seneker is beginning to move up on Tony Raines. Mike Eddy has now moved to 3rd in car number 88.
Well, it could be that the crew of the number 5 car told him to calm down just a little bit, because you certainly have to be working those tires awful hard, running a low line and racing as Brian Refner was. But there's Mike Eddy, just been hanging around, led the first couple of laps. The lead was taken away from him by Seneker. Since then, he's just kind of been hanging around among the top 5, and here he is 3rd again. Tony Raines, of course, his 2nd career victory and the 1st of this season came at Topeka on a road course. Here we're looking out through the front of the Johnsonville Foods Lane Automotive number 84, Bob Seneker at the leader. And now we look at the top 3 once again.
Tony Raines, of course, joining forces with crew chief Howie Leddow for 1995. We've talked a lot about Howie, recognized as probably the top crew chief in all of ASAs. We've got a great battle for 2nd position.
Mike Eddy, by leading that first lap of this race, kept his string intact that is just about unbelievable. Out of 28 races that have been held here at the Milwaukee Mile by the American Speed Association, Mike Eddy has led at least 1 lap in all of those 28 races. Only 2 drivers, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, have raced in all 28 races. Bob Seneker and Mike Eddy, there they are, one behind the other right now. But Mike Eddy has led a lap in every one of the 28 races. That's an amazing record.
It really is. And you know that you look at the 2 preeminent stock car sanctioning bodies in the country, NASCAR down south and the American Speed Association in the Midwest. These 2 good wrench drivers, it seems like every race historically it's been, Dale Earnhardt and somebody in the NASCAR races, and Mike Eddy racing somebody in ASA. Now, for a while today, it looked like Eddy had no better than a 4th or 5th place car, and all of a sudden, just as we watched Dale Earnhardt do last night at Bristol, you never count these guys out. They continue to come right to the front, and this is why most people say that Mike Eddy is as good a short track driver as there is in the country, bar none.
Well, he got off to such a great start this season, but since then has been stumbling just a little bit over the last several weeks. We talked to him earlier about just what the problems might be and how he perceives them.
Hey, I wish I knew, things like that go in streaks, and you just got to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. We run really good last week at Anderson, had some little 50-cent piece break. That's just the way it goes. You just keep plugging away, and hopefully things will change for the better.
Another analogy, and my observation here comes from watching the race last night from Bristol, which was magnificent, by the way. If you're a race car fan, it's hard to imagine anything more fun and enjoyable than last night. And I began to think of some things that were similar. Here we have the good wrench car, number 88, Mike Eddy going for his 8th championship, as is Dale Earnhardt. And we have a sophomore driver leading the points. Of course, Jeff Gordon leading the points in NASCAR. And we have Brian Refner in his 2nd season, the points leader here, with Mike Eddy sitting in 4th. So a lot of things are similar about what we're watching here today and about the the series that had such a terrific run last night at Bristol.
We've talked about this. We don't want to belabor a point, but I think it bears repeating again this afternoon that when you have a driver like a Dale Earnhardt or a Mike Eddy, it really makes every driver in that series better. You know, Jeff Gordon has gotten good quickly because he knew he had to go out there and try to race with Mike Eddy. Brian Refner has gotten so much better as he now begins to challenge Bob Seneker for third position. He has gotten so much better because of guys like Mike Eddy and Bob Seneker.
He has to go out and race against him week in and week out, and if a talented driver is able to learn from the best, of course, he is going to get very, very good. Now here we have a race for the lead as Mike Eddy goes side by side with another one of the young guys that has learned so much from racing with him. Mike Eddy and Tony Raines going at it, with Raines trying to saw him off a little on the front there and maintain that lead position. Of course, Mike Eddy clinging to the inside of the racetrack. Apparently, the crew of the number 88 car has given him just a little bit better car for the second half of this race than he had early on, and he's using it right now.
Again, if Tony can keep him pinched down to the bottom, which it does not look like he's going to be able to do, he keeps the advantage of being able to get the better run off the corner. Again, Mike knows that Tony's there. He can feel him, he can hear him, he can sense that he's there, as Refner has now taken third away from Bob Seneker. And again, Tony Raines has the advantage over Mike Eddy. Again, by keeping the black number 88 forced to the bottom side of the racetrack all the way around.
Well, Mike might have been testing the waters just a little bit right there for a move that he will use later in the race. He obviously learned something. Mike Eddy always learns a little something. So maybe he was just sticking his toe in that take the lead water to see if he can work later on. Let's go down to Ralph Shaheen, who's with the crew chief for the number 5 car.
That's Les Buck. Les, what's up with your car? How's it running right now? Are you slowing him down on purpose, or are you picking it back up?
Well, we picked up a little vibration in the car after that last pit stop, and kind of just riding a little bit and see what was going to happen. I don't know. It looks like he's starting to try a little bit there again, and you know, we'll see what happens. Maybe get it in there on the next yellow and take a look at it and see what's going on.
If there is a length of yellow, will you take the chance of coming in, or will you not give up track position?
Well, it kind of depends on how this vibration is. If it's bad, we'll probably bring it in and have a look at it.
That's kind of like Matt Kenseth earlier when he was charging to the front and they said the car was loose. You know, as long as it works, and you've said it, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And there may be a little bit of a vibration, but unless a whole bunch of the cars on the lead lap come on pit road, Refner has no choice, Brian, but to stay out there.
He's stalking the 2 leaders, and speaking of Matt Kenseth, he is the one position behind Bob Seneker there, as we will see them pass by. There's the blue car of Seneker just in the upper corner of the screen, and the 5th place car is that of Matt Kenseth, who you mentioned a moment ago.
And suddenly Refner is right there. The 2 Pontiacs battling first and second, and as they pay attention to each other, they better look in their rearview mirrors.
Well, here we're looking out the right side. If you were Tony Raines' pet dog hanging out the passenger side window, you'd be getting an eye full of Mike Eddy, and there's the tail end of the Goodwrench car, and just sneaking into the picture, of course, the car of Brian Refner.
These 3 have separated themselves somewhat from the 4th running car number 84 of Bob Seneker.
Well, Bob Seneker's history, at least as long as I've been around the American Speed Association, granted that isn't very long, has been that he'll sit back there and watch a whole lot of good racing, trying to figure out just when he'll get involved.
Well, this is a place that in the past, on some seasons, people have said is a boring ASA race. Certainly not today. We look down through the starting grid. It was at least 20 deep with drivers that had a shot at victory this afternoon. And we've got 2 at this Ford racetrack, Pontiacs, running up in front at the moment.
Mike Eddy picking up points for leading laps again here. Of course, he had already led 1 lap. That would be 5 points for leading any lap of an ASA race. It remains to be seen whether he'll be able to lead the most laps. It would seem doubtful at this point. Seneker having led pretty much the first half of the race for the most part. Mike Eddy trying to stretch out a lead over Tony Raines. Raines, who fought him off successfully just a little while ago. And Brian Refner with the front row seat on the first 2 cars.
We've been preoccupied with this front-running trio. Behind them, it's Bob Seneker, Matt Kenseth, and despite a very sour-sounding engine with an apparent broken header pipe, Kenny Schrader still is in 6th. Behind him, Glenn Allen Jr., Scott Hansen, who's picked up a couple of spots, and Joe Knott. Rick Beebe, the leading rookie, is 10th, having a great run. Harold Fair in 11th position. And J.D. Summers started first on the restart. Has pretty much held his own at about 12th position. Steve Holtzhausen, Kevin Sawinski, Brad Loney rounding out the top 15. And it says Jim Weber. That is, in fact, Bobby Gill. Weber qualified the car yesterday. Jay Sauter, after running at the front early, is back in 17th spot, and Ted Smokestad for the second weekend in a row having a good run in that Super America car. Tom Jones, who missed last weekend's race, is 19th. Rod Wheeler, we haven't said anything about him, making his first ASA start in car number 01. And Gary St. Amand, who was on pit road for a long time in car number 7, has come from 30th to 21st since the last caution.
Mike Eddy going underneath the number 51 of Brandon Sperling and putting him a lap down. Tony Raines follows suit. Brian Refner still third.
Sperling had a good run yesterday in his qualifying race. He drove that machine to a second place finish, the Ultra Custom Wheels Baja Racing Chevrolet, behind Ron Hornaday Jr. And over the last 5 of that 15-lap race, he was actually faster than Hornaday, just couldn't get around.
Race side by side for 4th place. Bob Seneker trying to hold off young Matt Kenseth. Kenseth, who was able to make a move towards the front, appears to be trying to do that again, as Seneker gives room on the inside, as he has consistently throughout this race. Kenseth's car, like that of Brian Refner, working extremely well down low, but he's just got to saw away, just chew away on that elephant one little bite at a time. Now he gets around.
It just seems like Bob Seneker's car is at its best the first few laps after a caution, as when we run a lengthy stretch of green, that Johnsonville Foods Ford Thunderbird seems to slip back just a little bit.
So the Bratmobile sliding back to 5th place, but we would have to say, if history has a way of repeating itself, we are not done yet talking about Bob Seneker, who won from the pole a year ago and sat on the pole for the start of this race. We'll be back to the Milwaukee Mile in just a moment.
Well, welcome back to the Milwaukee Mile. Sometimes you got to go the extra distance to get an interview with a top driver, like helping him push the car back. I don't like to do that. What happened to your car?
We busted a header about lap 70 or so, and then I don't know if we burned a valve or something, but it quit.
Well, tell me about this new deal maybe for 1996. How's it look?
I don't know. We're just, I'd sure like to put a team together and run this whole ASA series with someone else driving. I really like this series, and a lot of good sponsor exposure here, so we'll just see what happens.
I think that would be one of the hottest deals in racing, gentlemen. If Kenny Schrader could have his own team and a driver that he could coach, it'd be pretty exciting. Maybe one of those old open wheel veterans get a shot at another stock car run.
Well, here we are looking back at the racing. Ken Schrader out of the competition. Of course, that lends a little bit of a different hue to the whole situation here now with the 52 out. It looked like he had been a contender early and was moving up through the field. I'd like to say hello to Track Auto's Bob Brand. Of course, Track Auto on board here sponsoring the event, presenting the Badgerland 150 here at the Milwaukee Mile. And I guess Bob wanted to be with us, couldn't. He's watching at home and want to say hi to him.
You know, Ralph was just talking to Kenny about an old open-wheeled veteran, ASA racing. We had an interesting visitor yesterday to the Johnsonville luncheon, Gordon Johncock. And I don't know whether the rumor I heard is true or not. It might have been a little tongue-in-cheek. I wouldn't put it past him. But word is that Johncock was here scoping out the ASA Racing Series, thinking about a run for Rookie of the Year
I love this.
in 1996. Would that be great or what?
That'd be great. What a practically a legend, you know, in our time, coming back to run for Rookie of the Year in the American Speed Association. I'll take it.
Well,
I'll take it.
I can
Come on,
remember
Gordy, let's have it.
The last few years of the Roadsters, I think it was 1965. I was 13 years old and watched Gordon Johncock win Rookie of the Year in the Weinberger Homes Roadster. So it'd be great to see him in ASA competition. Matt Kenseth has gotten around Bob Seneker for 4th position, and that's been the hottest battle on the racetrack. Mike Eddy had stretched out a significant lead over Tony Raines, but now Tony's beginning to narrow it again, Brian.
Well, I don't know. This racetrack has kind of been a seesaw battle all the way. Here's Tom Jones with a broken clutch, and some of the fluid on his windshield could have either come from somebody else's car, perhaps his own. Sandy with an update, maybe more good information.
Well, it's not good. It is broken. They're just going to try to ride with what they've got, hoping it won't fall apart any further. Also, next to me is J.D. Summerspit, the number 22 car. Situation with him, he has not stopped for gas. They don't know any lap now. Right now, they're going to be coming in. He could be running on fumes. He may be doing that right now.
And apparently, the number 22 car has, in fact, run out of gas as he is slowing very seriously over on the backstretch side of the race course, and that's about a half a mile from where he needs to be to get some more.
Yeah, and it may precipitate a caution flag. I'm not really sure. J.D. Summers, I didn't know an ASA car could run that long, 123 miles. You have to wonder why they chose not to come in during the last caution period.
Well,
and look at Tony Raines all over Mike Eddy. And we've got a battle again. I thought once Eddie took the lead away, it began to stretch out the legs, he would check out, and the yellow flag is waving. Roger Slack directly in front of us. And this is going to set up a real shootout to the checker.
Well, we're being told it's a competition yellow, although any excuse at this point would include, a good excuse would include the fact that J.D. Summers' car is parked in the middle of the backstretch.
Yeah, it couldn't be a competition yellow.
It's not a competition yellow. Right.
For those of you who are not familiar with that, it's 100 laps on a half-mile racetrack, 50 laps of consecutive green flag racing. We'd see an automatic yellow.
In any case, we are under caution as Roger Slack is waving the yellow flag and slowing them down. We're 124 laps into this 150-lap race, and we'll be back.
Welcome back to the Track Auto 150, where we are under caution at lap 125. 25 miles to go. A number of lead lap cars coming on pit road. Those 5th through 10th. Mike Eddy was also on pit road as he was about to give up the lead. We're again looking at Bill Baird's car number 26. We'd like to say hi to Bill's papa, who is going in for some major surgery tomorrow. And our thoughts and prayers will be with him. The Tom Harrington family, Tom, a former ASA regular, his dad, Dub, passed away this week, and our prayers and condolences to the Harrington family. Bruce Sparman continues to be at home watching his young protege, the number 32 machine of Ted Smoke's dad. Doug Mayer keeps getting better. Also, hello to Frank and Marianne Klein, big ASA racing fans from Easton, Maryland.
There's Bill Baird's number 26 car, stayed out on the racetrack while a lot of others came in. Wholesale pit stops and changes are the order of the day here once again with 25 laps to go. Things will be interesting, and we'll be back to chronicle them for you. A little over 20 miles of racing remain in Track Auto's Badgerland 150 here at the Milwaukee Mile. We're still under caution. Some interesting things happening down on pit road, not the least of which was this.
Mike Eddy had a problem, and we were surprised to see him come on pit road in that Jim Goodwrench Pontiac car number 88 and give up the lead. He was the only one of the front-running dozen to come in. Here's the tow truck, and Mike and his crew, look at the crew. Howdy Thomas saying, get the heck out of the way. Now, there were a number of lead lap cars, Brian, that did come in. Not the top 10 or 12, but cars from like 13th position on back felt they had little to lose. Mike should have been able to get back out in front of all those cars. Instead, he's very near the tail end of the lead lap as we're still a lap away from going back to green.
Well, we mentioned a little while ago Gordon Johncock, and sure enough, Ralph Shaheen has found him down in the infield. Ralph?
All right, Gordon Johncock, two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. The guys up in the booth were saying that maybe you were here scouting out the possibility of you getting a ride this series next year. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Somebody's starting some rumors, I think.
Well, now Kenny Schrader says he's getting a team together for next year for the full doer, and I know you know him pretty good. Come on, how about it?
Oh, I don't know. I got a lot of farming to do. It take up a lot of my time.
You enjoying your day here?
Oh, I sure am.
Gordon Johncock here with us at the Milwaukee Mile.
I don't know about you guys. I didn't hear a no. So I guess that means maybe, huh?
That's right.
Look at these cars on the lead lap back through the pack. You could see Loney made it 3 wide. Mike Eddy trying to race up through the field. Mike back in 19th position of the 21 cars that remain on the lead lap.
Well, there is a very red-faced push truck driver down there right now, and I imagine his ears are burning just a little bit too, because not only did Mike Eddy's crew let him know that they weren't too happy about the situation, but the ASA officials that were down there got into it a little bit as well. And we're on board here with Jay Sauter carrying the onboard camera of the Phillips 66 Trop Arctic motor oil, and he's got quite a view out through the windshield.
It's more like a free-for-all than a line dance to me. Look at him going into turn number 1. Several of the cars much faster than those in front of them. The lead lap cars trying to make their way up through the pack. Look at them 3 wide. You can see right in the middle of that mess is Jay Sauter in car number 1. Mike Eddy is at the bottom. They're closing on Mike Miller's car number 18. Now we're riding with Jay Sauter. Goes underneath the number 71 of John O'Neill, who will run for Rookie of the Year next year. And Mike Eddy gets a spot away from Jay Sauter as they work around O'Neill.
Well, I don't think they're closing on the 18 of Mike Miller too much at all. It looks like he's doing a good job of running interference for Mike Eddy heading towards the front. Maybe after 2 pit stops, those Georgia boys down there on the 18 car have got their setup right. They changed everything and then had no practice to determine whether the car was going to be fast or slow. Now Mike Eddy going inside of Mike Miller, and apparently Eddie's car, well, wait just a minute now. I was starting to say apparently it's Eddie's car that's the fast one, but both of these guys are heading towards the front.
Right behind Bobby Gill, another Georgia driver. I don't remember another time other than when Gill ran with us earlier this season. We've had 2 Georgia drivers in a single ASA race.
Well, it's a Georgia crew with a Minnesota driver, if truth be known. Of course, Mike Miller, who has not raced here at Milwaukee since 1983. We talk about Mike. Whoa, we got a big mess in the backstretch. Bill Baird's 26.
Rick Miller and car number 31 was involved, and it didn't really look like there was much contact, if any.
Big break for Mike Eddy and for the others who were heading towards the front. Now they'll be able to really establish their positions and kind of take a deep breath and figure it out. We've got 16 laps of racing left to go. Let's go down to Ralph Shaheen with Howard Thomas. What was going on down there?
All right, Howard, first I got to ask you, why did you pit?
Well, we thought we'd gamble on pitting, only because mainly we thought everybody else would pit, but it didn't work out that way. But what really hurt us was a wrecker sitting crossways at Print Road. That really hurt us.
What's Mike saying now that you got the yellows? How's this going to help you out here?
Well, it'll tighten up the field, and hopefully we can work our way back to the front because we got the best tires.
And probably the best driver.
Well, there's the word. Howard Thomas probably couldn't print what he said about that wrecker sitting crossways on pit road. In any case, we'll be racing in a moment. Welcome back to the closing laps of the Track Auto Badgerland 150 here. 13 remaining, and we have just come out of a caution that was precipitated at a very timely moment for a number of drivers. Mike Eddy, who had been working his way up through the field, continues to do so. The leader, Tony Raines. Brian Reffner, the points leader. Bob Seneker on the outside now trying to retake the position from Matt Kenseth in the 68 machine. And running in 5th spot, I believe that is Scott Hansen back there in that white car, blue number 53.
I thought we had seen some smoke out of Bob Seneker's car number 84 just before we went to caution, but it disappeared as soon as we went back to green, and he was once again at speed. So obviously the car running very well now as he's 3rd and begins to try to close the gap between himself and 2nd place Brian Reffner. Meanwhile, Mike Eddy has come from 19th to 10th since the restart.
Here's what caused the caution. Watch closely on the left side as we're looking out in front of Tom Jones's car. You're going to see the 22 get into the 71 car there. So J.D. Summers with some contact on John O'Neill and A.J. Cooper's number 71 car. That's what brought out the caution. But we're back to racing now. 11 laps to go.
Everybody was able to move away from that. And there is the first 3 positions. Now it's Matt Kenseth 4th. And all of a sudden, Mike Eddy, we just talked about him being 10th. He's now in 6th and closing on Glenn Allen, who runs in 5th position.
What a race going on here. There is 5th place Glenn Allen, Mike Eddy. Scott Hansen fading badly. Got off well on the restart, but now is just heading back there and losing a lot of ground to both Mike Eddy and Glenn Allen Jr.
Glenn Allen has made a great run on the restart also, and it looks like Scott Hansen may be a little off the pace in car number 53. Let's see if anybody comes to the low side of him as he goes down the backstretch, dropping way behind Glenn Allen and Mike Eddy. And we are riding with Scott Hansen. You can watch those front 6 cars getting away from him as he comes off turn number 4. It's got to be frustrating. He's been strong all day.
Well, he's also 2nd in the point standings. He's not going to gain any ground on Brian Reffner, who is running 3rd right now as Bob Seneker has taken away 2nd position from Brian Reffner. Reffner running 3rd, Hansen running 7th at the moment. So certainly the points among the 2 leaders in the point standings are going to be falling in favor of Brian Reffner.
And here comes Glenn Allen in that Eaglewood CarQuest Pontiac. He comes to 4th. We haven't seen this kind of muscle out of Glenn Allen all day. Mike Eddy came with him on the restart of this race, and the 2 of those Pontiacs racing toward the front as they close in on Reffner.
Down to 8 laps to go now in this 150-mile race. Mike Eddy on the inside of Kenseth there, and we really are seeing some terrific racing up front. A couple of new faces, some we would expect to be there, and some that are making an appearance for the first time. Notably, Glenn Allen Jr. running fourth and pressuring Brian Refner now for third.
And seeing some unique lines down the backstretch. Tony Raines close to the bottom, trying to shut the door on Bob Seneker. Refner tried to do the same thing unsuccessfully on Glenn Allen, and it's that purple and white Pontiac that is headed toward the front up to third. Here comes Mike Eddy. He's challenging now Refner for fourth.
Well, Tony Raines, when he got out front at Topeka and earned his second career victory, his first for the season and the first in a long time, did a great job of driving wide, as we call it. If he could get his arms out the window and hold back Bob Seneker that way, he probably would. Right now, with 7 laps to go, Tony Raines clinging to a very slight lead, and Glenn Allen Jr. is on the move. He's taken away second.
Glenn Allen has not won in 1995. He is third in the points behind Brian Refner and Scott Hansen, and suddenly he looks like he may be the man to beat. He and Mike Eddy, both with fresh tires. Tony Raines and Bob Seneker stayed out. We question the wisdom of the pit stops by Glenn Allen and Mike Eddy. We no longer question those decisions.
Well, Glenn Allen Jr. making short work of Bob Seneker for second place, and now pressures the leader, Tony Raines. It looked like he might get both of them with one move there, but Raines still driving wide up front, making it tough to get around him. Glenn Allen Jr. showing him the inside, and with good tires, he certainly will try to use that inside line to pass. But Tony Raines doing a great job of using up this very wide Milwaukee Mile track.
Mike Eddy having a little tougher time getting around Seneker than Glenn Allen did. However, Glenn has not been able to put the move on Raines, and that allows Eddy to move right in behind Glenn Allen. Now it looks like Glenn is alongside. I thought it may just be tires, but he's got a good run. Heading down the backstretch and into turn number 3. Needs to make the move, a clean one, and he's done it, Brian, taking the lead after being back in about 16th position on the restart just 20 laps ago.
Likewise, Mike Eddy makes the move inside on Tony Raines, and Raines losing a couple of spots in the same lap here, as now Mike Eddy has moved into second spot, and he with the fast car, just like Glenn Allen Jr. It's going to be a great shootout between these two, as Mike Eddy has reasserted himself near the front of the field and will be challenging for the lead. Will he have enough time to get around Glenn Allen Jr. in the last 3 laps of this race?
Just 3.5 miles to go as the leaders move down into turn number 3. Glenn Allen winless since the midpoint of the 1994 racing season. Mike Eddy started like a freight train, winning the first 3 races of the year. Hasn't found himself in victory lane since, and now these two will duke it out for the win this afternoon.
2 very evenly matched automobiles and 2 very talented and skilled drivers. One representing sort of the youth movement in the American Speed Association, and one, of course, representing nothing but the very best race car driver available in any series across this country. Mike Eddy trying to challenge young Glenn Allen Jr., who took the lead so convincingly away from Tony Raines a moment ago, and now is putting on his own wide track Pontiac driving style up front.
Watching the battle for the lead behind them, Mike Miller and Brad Loney have moved up into contending positions. The 2 guys that tangled last week, they're up into 6th and 7th. But we now have 2 laps to go, 2 miles. Can Glenn Allen Jr. hold off Mike Eddy? We watched in 1992 as Johnny Benson and Mike Eddy dueled for the win. It was Benson getting the best of Eddy in that one, and now Glenn Allen trying to make it last for another 1.5 miles around this racetrack.
Glenn Allen Jr. holding on there. Looked like he was using the 0-2 car for a rolling pick, but left room for Mike to get through. Mike could not get through a moment ago. And now Glenn Allen Jr. crossing the stripe for the white flag lap. It's down to a mile of racing. A very tense Mike Eddy pit crew down there watching the television monitor, probably hiding their eyes, and Glenn Allen Jr. still getting the best of it on the backstretch.
Among them, Mike Eddy's young son, watching his dad try to make the move on Glenn Allen Jr. Glenn just 22 or 24 years of age, trying to be the standard bearer here this afternoon for the youth movement. Off of turn number 4, Brian, who's it going to be?
No contact, unlike last night at Bristol. Mike Eddy in a drag race to the stripe. Who's going to get there first? And it's going to be, apparently, Glenn Allen Jr. able to hold off just by a nose. But these guys applauding a great victory. We're still not quite sure exactly who won that race.
I thought Mike Eddy, he did wave for a moment to Glenn Allen Jr., congratulating the young Charger, formerly from Cincinnati, an all-state football and baseball player. He gets his hard-earned victory today, the first one in 1995, and this is going to move him up solidly in the point standings. Remember, coming in, it was Refner out in front, Hansen second, Glenn Allen Jr. was third. He bests both of them, Refner by about 3 spots and Hansen by more than half a dozen.
Well, Glenn Allen Jr., it is now official, is the winner of the Track Auto Badgerland 150. He will pull down onto victory lane, and a very happy crew of the number 15 Eaglewood Construction Pontiac.
There's his mom all dressed in white. She's been sick all season, and what a way to come back to ASA Racing to see her son in victory lane.
We'll go down to victory lane and talk to the winners, and there will be tales to tell. We'll be back here to the Milwaukee Mile in just a moment. The winner of Track Auto's Badgerland 150, Glenn Allen Jr., his first victory in the 1995 season, his most recent coming at the end of the 1994 season at Jennerstown. He's with Ralph Shaheen down on pit road.
Well, we're down here in victory lane. Glenn Allen Jr., it's since Jennerstown of last year. You get your first win back here with us in 1995 in a tremendous last lap battle. Tell me about that.
Well, really, we were running about sixth when the caution came out, and I knew we wasn't going to go any more forward, so we decided to make a pit stop and got 4 fresh tires. The Goodyear tires worked good, and we just came to the front. I drove as hard as I could the last 25 laps, seeing as far up as we can get, and we just started picking them off one by one, and it's fun to win that way.
Now tell me about it. I know you saw Mike Eddy in the background there. What did you think when you saw him coming?
Well, about 5 laps ago, the car started getting really loose, and he ran me harder than I wanted to. My hat's off to Mike for racing me clean, but the car really ran well for us, and I give it all I could give, all 110%, and we did the best we could do.
Well, Mike Miller just coming over to congratulate you. You got your mom and your dad down here. Dad's with us. Dad, you got to be a little fired up about this. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time for us. We should have won before, but we haven't, and we came down to a battle 2 times with Mike Eddy, and I thought we might lose this time on account of Mike Eddy, but it's the other way around this time, and he's second, we're first, and we'll take it. We need to win.
Okay, now, Glenn, tell me about this. This gives you a lot of momentum here as we go into the last part of the season. That's got to make a big boost for you.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. We've had good runs the last few weeks. It just our finish position didn't show how good a run we had. So we knew if we put it all together today, we'd have a good run. And I'd like to thank our sponsors, Eaglewood Construction, CarQuest Auto Parts, GM Performance Parts, and Pontiac. This old Pontiac run good. So we did everything we do. My hat's off to the guys on the crew.
That was going to be my next question. They've said a lot that this is a Ford track, but you proved it's a Pontiac track. What was it about Pontiacs running 1 and 2 today?
Well, I think a determination. With about 25 to go, I knew we were going to come to the front and go as hard as we could. And we just started picking off cars one by one, and our Goodyear Eagles were better than anybody else's.
Glenn Allen Jr., the winner here at the Milwaukee Mile.
Well, and victories are a long time coming. Perhaps they are just a little bit sweeter. For Glenn Allen Jr., certainly his family and his crew, this one was sweet indeed. We'll be back to talk to more of the contenders down in Winner's Circle in a moment. Welcome back to the Milwaukee Mile. The festivities are just getting underway here. The post-race festivities, you might say. You've heard from the winner. Let's go down to the runner-up now with Sandy Hang.
Well, I'm down here with Mike Eddy, and Mike, you know what? Tell you what, I've never quite seen something like that. The wrecker in front of you. What were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking I wish he'd get the hell out of there, you know. We were making our stop there, and I thought he was pushing in that disabled car, and I thought he was just going to go through the hole in the wall there and head into the paddock area, but he just kind of stopped and sat there, and, there's no way I could get around him. I just had to wait for him to move.
You made up a lot of time there at the end. How'd you do it?
Well, I was out front there just before I pitted, and I kind of felt that the tires weren't going to be good enough to make it to the end if one person stopped. But I figured it'd be somebody else that'd follow me in, and it was just me and Glenn that went in, and as it was, it paid off. We ended up there in front, me and Glenn, and we were having a pretty good race there the last lap. I was a little bit faster than Glenn, but not quite enough room to get around, and I guess I didn't want to see another Cedar Rapids take place. I was looking for a finish this week, too.
Okay, that's Mike Eddy here, finishing second today at the Milwaukee Mile.
Well, and a terrific run there, watching that GM Goodwrench Pontiac going after the young driver up there in the front. Third place, well, and a fellow that led this race for quite a while, Tony Raines. He's with Ralph.
This team really has turned the corner. What's the difference here?
Well, we finished the race for starters. We've run fast. So just last 2 or 3 races we had some trouble, and finally everything came together here, and we came home with a finish. We should have pitted that last yellow maybe. I know we were going to take a gamble, but we went for the win, and the guys came back. So my hat's off to them. But these guys that helped us out, Clean Burn, Pontiac, and all my sponsors. We had Sitco on here for the weekend. and a lot of local guys, hometown, and it feels real good to come home and finish.
Did you just run out of tires?
I wouldn't say we run out. I think on old tires our car was, pretty good. Them guys pitted. We didn't think they'd be able to get back up through there, but them 2 yellows helped bunch them back up, and they had a little fresher tires than we did, and they came home, with the better finish.
Obviously, a win is a goal between now and Jennerstown at the end of the season. What else would you like to see out of you and this team with Howie Leddow to know that 96 maybe could be a championship contending season for you?
Well, I think we just need to do what we did today at each and every race that we go to, and we could be a championship team. When we finish up front. We got good cars and good motors, and a great crew that got me out of the pits first, and that's what it takes to win a championship.
They're going to be taking up all this asphalt after today, and what do you think about that? Are you happy to see this asphalt go, or was it a good surface for you?
Well, it wasn't bad. The new pavement's going to make it a lot faster. Probably we'll have to run a different tire when we come back here. Goodyear does a good job with that, but I think we'll be all right.
One of our next stops is going to be Kaukauna, Wisconsin, a place that you know somewhat about. What do you think about that venue coming up live on TNN?
Well, I know something about it, but it's not real good. I've got some testing to do up here before we get really running well there. It's a tough track, but we'll get it worked out.
Tony Raines comes home with a third-place finish here at Milwaukee Mile. And, gentlemen, I got to believe, with a full season under their belt, Tony Raines and Howie Leddow and the folks with the 87 car going to be real strong next season.
We add our congratulations to Tony Raines, to Mike Eddy, and to the winner of the race, Glenn Allen Jr. here at the Track Auto Badgerland 150. What a terrific afternoon. It started out as kind of settling in a little bit, watching a race, 40 cars on a great big racetrack, and it went right down to the wire.
Those guys down south say Pontiac needs another year. Not so in ASA. Pontiac's first, second, and third this afternoon.
We'll be back here to the legendary oval, they call it, the Milwaukee Mile, the last race held here on the old pavement, and more to come. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Some of the crowd filing out here to enjoy the rest of the Wisconsin State Fair. This has really been the centerpiece of the weekend's activities here at the fairgrounds, the Badgerland 150. We're going to go, while the celebrations continue for the top 3, we're going to go down to Sandy Hang, who will be talking. Well, last year, Bob Seneker won from the pole. Apparently was not meant to be this year for the ASA's winningest driver.
That's right. It wasn't meant to be, but it wasn't a laundry list of problems here for Bob Seneker today. Bob, what did it all boil down to for you?
Well, the Johnsonville Ford ran fast from the get-go, but I had a tire go down just before that first caution in the middle of the race, and that was slowing me down. That's why I dropped back there before that caution. And we're going good after we made the pit stop, and something happened to the brakes. I started losing brakes a little after halfway point. And, well, if you don't have any brakes here in Milwaukee, you have a little trouble getting in the corner. It makes it kind of spooky, and I had to just back off and let some of them guys go. Otherwise, Ford was running good.
Before the race we were talking about, it was starting to warm up, and a lot of drivers prepared for a cloudy day, a colder track. You said it doesn't matter. Fast, hot, cold, it doesn't matter. Why is your setup so different that it's really not sensitive to temperature like this?
I don't know. The car is kind of a soft setup, and it doesn't really matter what kind of racetrack it's on. If it's sunny or if it's clear, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, that's Bob Seneker here today.
The Bluebird finishing 4th for the record here at the Badgerland 150. And we want to thank Bob for encouraging the folks at Johnsonville Foods to put on that big feed yesterday. There's Bob. Of course, we all had to wait till he went through the line first.
I thought he was a vegetarian. And maybe he used to be. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm still mad that Mark and those guys didn't bring those spicy sausages they have. They brought some great brats, though. We enjoyed that. Who's that guy?
I don't know, some pig sitting there with Rick Barber of Johnsonville Foods. Guy looked a lot like you, or maybe that was just the hat that made him look
There's
like
our director, Gary Clem, and some of the crew. And there's Rob Albright. Of course, you got your back to the camera. We can't see. There's 4 brats piled up on his plate there, folks. And here we are back to live action, you might say, as the photographers are getting their opportunity with the winners. The top 3 once again. Glenn Allen Jr., Mike Eddy, and Tony Raines. Pontiac's finishing 1, 2, 3. Well, Ralph Shaheen is now cornered the 5th place driver down there. Points leader Brian Refner.
Well, it is a 5th place, but it's still the points lead. You comfortable with that?
Oh yeah, that was our goal all year, was finishing in the top 5, and here we are with a 5th place finish. And we had a real strong car, and I was really happy with the way it ran. And well, towards the end we should have maybe come in and pitted with Mike and Glenn, but you know, if it would have stayed green to the end, them guys would have been in trouble coming from that far back. So, you know, they took a chance, and it proved out good for them. But, you know, we come to Milwaukee as a hometown track. We ran strong, and that's really what we wanted to do. You know, if we could have won it, it would have been even better. But, you know, that was our goal, top 5, so I'm happy.
It's got to be nice to have that happen with a new sponsor on the side of the car. And early on, it looked like it was going to be a Ford racetrack, especially you and Bob Seneker. What was it about your car that allowed you to run up there with him? We expect that out of him, but we hadn't seen that strength from you here yet.
Well, you know, this Precision Metal Works SK Williams Ford was really running good early. Bob ran a real high line, and I was running a low line, which where the car felt comfortable, and Bob obviously felt a little comfortable up high, and I could get a run on him coming in, and then I get a good jump coming off. But it was a good race early. You know, it was fun to follow Bob because he's had a lot of laps here. You know, this is a hometown track, but you really don't have that many laps here, so it was fun to follow him and get to learn the ins and outs of this racetrack.
You know, they've been complaining about that for years, the guys on the GM teams, that this was such a Ford track. Do you think the fact that up front today we're Pontiac, that pretty much evens that out?
You know, they put us on a 600 carburetor, which is the rest of the teams had. So, yeah, that was an even field as far as I felt. You know, it was a good race. You know, it was Fords, Pontiacs. It was shuffled all around and back and forth. Good passing. That was a great race.
Okay, for you now, as we get into the final races here of the season, we go to Minneapolis next, which is not on TV, and then Kaukauna, which you have run a lot at, which is on TNN. Tell me about those two races and what you expect and how you're going to fight for this championship.
Well, Minnesota is a great track for me. We went there last year and had a good run. We had some bad luck with mechanical failures, but you know, that's what we've went through this winter and gathered up every other notes that happened, and we'll make sure that don't happen this year. I'm looking for a real good run there. When we go to Kaukauna, and we've got a lot of laps there, so maybe them guys will be watching me to see where the lane is around that track.
You know, Rob Albright's been talking all day long about these Brian Reffner t-shirts. I think he, you know, he's getting into that schmooze and dice. I think he really would like one. You think you can find one for Albright?
Well, we'll see what we can do, but he'll have to talk good about me for the rest of the year, though.
I think it's a double extra medium, right, Rob?
Yeah, thanks. I don't know. You know, we told Brian at the beginning of this season, Brian Drebber, that he had to run up front or he wasn't going to get all the press that he did last year because he had that great rookie battle with Dave Sensiba. His demeanor didn't change. He did exactly what we told him he had to do to get his picture on the paper and on the television set.
And I'm sure that's exactly why he did it, because we told him. I tell you what, he has just been so impressive by the fact that he has just been so capable, so quietly capable of doing what he has done, which is no less than lead the point series in the American Speed Association in his second year of competition. We'll be back with more at the Milwaukee Mile here. We're not done yet as you look down the run of the field. We're still here at the Wisconsin State Fairgrounds. The race over some time ago. We've talked to the winners. There's still some stories that we have time to close up on. One of them, well, we set up here in the booth that those Georgia boys would figure out that number 18 car, even though they didn't get any practice laps, they'd figure it out sooner or later. Right now, Sandy Hang is with the driver, Mike Miller.
Well, you remember before the race, they said they turned it upside down, new motor, new shocks, new everything. This man said 10 more laps. Carl Highland crew chief said 10 more laps. They had the fastest car. It would have been a different story. Mike has already changed, freshened up. Great race for you out there today, Mike.
You bet. I'll tell you what, I have absolutely no, it's not qualified at all. I have the best pit crew in this whole sport. I am so tickled with those guys. They busted their butt all weekend, and they can change tires faster than anybody in the whole world. I mean, it was an awesome finish to the race for us.
You took a huge risk. It was a risk doing what you did, turning the car upside down, inside out as you did. At the end, did you feel that you had the car underneath you, that maybe you had a few more laps that you could have improved your position considerably?
Well, we were catching the 68 car and the 84 car at the end there, and you know, given 10 more laps, we would have been in third and maybe challenging for the lead. I mean, it was awesome.
We can't help but ask this question. It looks like you worked out your problems with Brad Loney. It's done. You went through with it. You're back on the track again.
Yeah, well, that's only the future knows for sure what will happen.
Okay, that's Mike Miller. You heard it.
Well, Mike, and for the record, Brad Loney finishing one spot behind Mike. They finished 7th and 8th and ran towards the front together, both of them. And I wouldn't have believed that either one of them would have been able to run so quickly towards the front as they did. But they, like the first and second place cars, stopped for tires late And Mike is absolutely right. His crew put him in and out of the pits faster than just about anybody. He made up a lot. He made up as much ground in the pits as the driver did out on the racetrack. As we look down the rest of the field, anything stick out in your mind here?
Kevin Sawinski had a great run late in the going in car number 65. Harold Fair, after starting 4th, finishes 12th. Scott Hansen faded late to 13th at the end. Rick Beebe was the highest finishing rookie, shown in 14th. Gary St. Amant 15th. Bobby Gill started shotgun on the field and was running toward the front, got to about 15th and 16th, and that's where he stayed. Tom Jones, despite the clutch problem, comes home 17th. And a great run for Rod Wheeler, making his ASA debut. This Wisconsin-based driver. Ted Smokestad 19th, and Pat Bordeaux the 20th place driver, and I think the last car on the lead lap at the checkers.
Well, there's some of our hard-working guys up there on the roof there. The bird's eye view that you get of the racetrack comes courtesy of those gentlemen there. And as we look down here at the rest of the results down in through 21st through 30th place, again, we hope you see the name of your favorite driver, but as high up in the standings as you would hope. Dr. Yale Conley, of course, the first casualty, and Ron Hornaday, a very inauspicious debut here, but as in his own words, he said, well, we're not running for points. There's no reason for us to go back out there and limp a lame race car around the track. Let's go down once again pit road. Ralph Shaheen, his day is not over, and he is with the man who is currently second and remains second in the points, Scott Hansen.
Well, you sit back in second place still in the points. I know you were kind of hoping to pick up a lot of ground here today, and that didn't happen. What was the story with the tires at the end of the race?
Well, I really don't know. You know, the car was never right all weekend. You know, I was going to pit second week in a row that I second guessed myself. You know, I was on my way in the pits and turned out figuring, well, them guys will never make up that much ground, and they did.
This is also the second race without a quote-unquote crew chief. You're pretty much doing it on a team basis, team decision. Do you think maybe if you had a crew chief to say, no, get in here now, then maybe that would be a difference?
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt anything. You know, I just talked to a couple of my main guys and told them that this is a team deal. There's 10 of us here, that 10 of us need to make this decision. Like I said, 2 weeks in a row, I made the wrong call by not coming in for tires. You know, just because I've been in both situations. You know, Anderson won the race on one stop. You know, I've been here, pitted, went to the back, couldn't make up the ground, you know, so I thought the car wasn't that bad. But, you know, just like I said, whatever happened, you know, the tires really went away at the end, and, you know, we just end up backing up.
Okay, so how do we catch Raptor now before the season ends? You've got Minnesota coming up next, and then right after that, Kaukauna, Wisconsin, a track you know very well. Of course, that race live on TNN.
Well, Kaukana's been a real good track to me. I've won about every kind of race there is to win there. Minnesota's been good to us. Forget the points. Let's win the race. Let's take each race one at a time. You know, I never did points race. To be honest with you, we thought about it the last couple races. We've seemed to go backwards a little bit. Let's just go take each race one at a time and see what happens.
Can you really be that comfortable about this? Because this has got to be the best chance you've ever had almost to win this title. And I know how desperately you want to do that. Are you really that calm about it?
Yeah, I am, because my worst year's been third in the series, so the worst I feel I can get to is third the way we're going. So I don't want to fall out of the top three. I want to get back to winning races. I know the team's capable of doing it. You know, we got good stuff, good people. You know, the pit stops prove it. You know, we get in and get out. We just need to worry about taking a little more time with the cars, getting them set up right, and running smart races. You know, forget not pitting. Maybe we can run fifth, or, you know, like Mike and Glenn had nothing to lose. You know, put tires on. The old Dale Earnhardt syndrome from last night, you know, whatever it takes to get to the front, get there. And they did it. You know, they proved it, and that's what we need to get back to.
Maybe that veteran experience of Scott Hansen will make the difference in this title chase.
Well, there are some TNN fans here. The American Speed Association's broadcast live here on TNN continues. We'll be back to Milwaukee in a moment. Well, we thought for a minute that Jack Roush was here this afternoon because, well, there's, you know. Anyway, those of you that watched last night, you know that that's the favored headgear of Jack Roush. And, well, we thought he was here for a minute, but apparently he's not. We are not quite done. We thank you for spending the time with us that you have, and we look forward to spending some more time with you here on TNN at Kaukauna, the Wisconsin 300 coming up in just a couple of weeks. And then, of course, we will make a return visit to Toledo, the always exciting Toledo 400, and that is a terrific racetrack. I think some of my best memories still are of Toledo a year ago. And folks are still enjoying the Wisconsin State Fair here at the fairgrounds just outside, right inside Milwaukee. A lot of people enjoying the fair would think, well, what do the drivers do? We asked Josh Duval to take care of it.
Hi, I'm Josh Duval, and we're here at the Milwaukee State Fairgrounds. And next week we're going to Minnesota State Fair, so I decided to ask Brian Refner a couple fair questions. What's your favorite ride at the fair?
Well, Josh, when I first started going to Minnesota State Fair when I was pretty small, I really enjoyed them thrill-seeker rides, the ones that lift your stomach right up to your throat. But now I've gotten down to where I mellowed out a little bit. You know, that Minnesota State Fair, I like the haunted houses, probably my favorite thing to go through. And the ride, well, if I can find a girl, I'll go on the Ferris wheel.
What's your favorite kind of food? They're all sugary.
Oh, boy. You know, I'm still a kid at heart when it comes to that fair, and I really like that cotton candy.
Thank you, Brian. If you have a question about racing, send it to me at The Young Racers, P.O. Box 26792, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28221.
Well, I know when I go to the state fair, you have to throw caution to the wind when it comes to picking food. I like those lard-basted, batter-dipped, deep-fried cheese ribs with gravy. They're my favorite.
Yeah. Well, in Minnesota, it's the cheese curds and the elephant ears. So that's kind of a cross between what you were saying.
I'll trust you on that one.
I'm going to be there. I'm going for that.
We're going to go and visit once again with Sandy Hang down on pit road as the story continues.
Well, one driver who threw caution to the wind towards the end of the race and just went for it. You were really passing cars there, Brad Loney, towards the end of the race. What changed in the car that you were making a run for it there at the end?
Well, the guys on this Winnebago Flex Steel Industries H&W Motor Express team did a great job with this last set of tires, and it really made a difference for us. And I can't say enough for them on the pit stops and everything. And you know, we'd have liked to have been up a little farther today, but you know, it just wasn't to be. We're happy to be in one piece and having a top 10 finish again.
Well, after this race, they're going to be resurfacing the track. We've talked a lot about this. Are you going to be glad to see the old surface go, or no?
Well, we'll have to wait and see, I think. But definitely the old surface is interesting with all the additional bumps and cracks and everything. So the speeds will be fun next year. We'll wait and see.
Now, you have someone interesting here sitting beside you. I saw this young lady working in your pit as an honorary pit member. And tell us a little bit about what you did today.
Yeah, this is Michelle Huntley, and today she was running the pit board and doing my windshield this afternoon, and she did an excellent job.
Now, I understand that she organized your fan club. What role does she play?
Yeah, she's the president of the fan club, and she's from Midland, Michigan, which is a little ways away from home for us. But she had contacted me a couple of years ago, and we got together and worked things out, and she's doing a fantastic job with the club.
Why does a team get fan club members and fans involved with the action of the team?
Well, anything we can do, not only from a fan standpoint, but also for our sponsors to get people involved in everything that's going on at the track and at home.
Okay, that's Brad Loney here today with the president of his fan club.
You know what's interesting about that? She's from Midland, Michigan, the hometown of Mike Eddy, and she's the president of the Brad Loney fan club. I wonder if that was before or after the race at Cedar Rapids.
I don't know. I'll tell you what, though, perhaps further evidence of that ways can be mended here. We want to let you know that we keep up with a lot of what's going on in the American Speed Association in the Action Line, and you can too. And you can subscribe or get information about that publication by writing to the address on your screen, P.O. Box 325, Pendleton, Indiana, 46064-0325. That's the rest of that 9-digit zip code. And the Action Line bringing you lots of information about races past and upcoming, and lots of features and interesting stories. My favorite, of course, my broadcast colleague Rob Albright with a weekly column, or bi-weekly column in the Action Line. That's my favorite. We'll be back here at Milwaukee in just a few moments to wrap it all up for you. We hope you've enjoyed the afternoon. We certainly have, and see you in a minute. The 1995 AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Super Track. More parts, more service, more savings. By Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. By your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. And by Just for Men, the leader in men's hair coloring. Blends away gray in 5 minutes. Well, we have yet to award the winning move for this Badgerland 150 here. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts. I think it occurred yesterday when our stage manager Celia Klein celebrated her birthday in an oversized chili pepper. I don't think we're going to get to show you, but this is the real wins winning move. When Glenn Allen Jr. and Mike Eddy came racing from deep in the pack late in the going, Tony Raines knew it was all over when Glenn Allen went by. And here is Glenn Allen holding Mike Eddy off on the last turn of lap number 150. To me, that's the real winning move. You could see Mike making a little contact, Glenn's car all over the racetrack, but somehow he holds on for the win and the winning move.
Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us here and let you